Well, good evening. Nice to see you. You okay? Thank you for coming out, and thank you to the 13 people who are watching over there on the coffee bar. So the reason I have a microphone is because it's connected to that speaker, so they can hear what I'm saying, and that's the cheapest and easiest way to stream today. So it's not going to help. I mean, it doesn't help you guys at all, but it helps them, and they don't know what I've just said then. Thank you for coming out tonight. We are talking about the building tonight. When I first came on board, and I spent the first little while just meeting up with folk from the church family and asking really what the guys in the church wanted over the next season, what their priorities were. And they talked about a number of things. They talked about children and young people. They talked about small groups. But one of the things that almost everybody said was phase 4. For those who don't know, upstairs, from that wall up until probably that wall you can see there, is undeveloped currently. It's a big empty space, pretty much as it was when the building was taken over. And so we've been thinking for a long time now, how do we make best use of this space? And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. And so I'm going to talk. I'm going to interview Steve and Helen a little bit as well. I'm going to share some of our plans that you have in front of you. I'll talk you through those, a little bit of costing and things that we've been quoted thus far. And also, and this is probably the main point of today, is to give you guys an opportunity to chat through what I say and ask any questions. Let us know of anything that we've missed, and your concerns, your worries, and we can just all air those today, or we can have a think about them today. And this is a big fact-finding and opinion-finding thing for us that will hopefully shape how we then move forward afterwards. So, you're not just here to listen, you're here because we need you and your opinions and everything like that. Okay? Deal? Now, if you're watching online, just to say that you can pop stuff in the comments, and we'll be monitoring those throughout the night. And so if you have stuff, you can pop it in the comments, or you can email me or Sue your thoughts afterwards, if that's easier. So I want to start off by us thinking about where we've come from. So the King Centre wasn't always the King Centre. This is what the King Centre looked like when it was functioning as a factory. This is what the main hall used to look like, which is a little different to now. And I just wanted to spend a few minutes chatting with Steve and Helen. So come on up, Steve and Helen. Welcome, Steve and Helen, everybody. About what it was like when we first moved into the building. There you go. And so...
Well, a bit like that.
So, how long have you guys been part of the church? When did you first come?
We came to Meadows the second Sunday it existed.
So that was almost 30 years ago.
We would have come the first Sunday, but Helen was preaching at the other church, so we couldn't come.
So pretty much since the start?
Right from the start.
So we used to be in the school, Meadows Community School?
Yeah, we met in the Meadows School, up on the Meadows estate. We were there for 3 years, I think it was around about 3 years. We got to become independent. We were actually planted by Knighton Evangelical Free Church. Okay, so it was a church plant. We met at the school. After about 3 years, we became independent of Knighton, financially, as well as, because at the time when I first became an elder, I was actually an elder at Knighton as well, because that's the only way you could do it, along with Pete. And we got to about 66 people, and we actually outgrew the actual church or the school. Or we had the main dining hall and the sort of community lounge. We got so many kids, we just didn't know what to do with them. In fact, we were taking them off site to people's houses for their Sundays.
And so you guys were outgrowing the school hall.
We did.
And then you came across this. What was this building?
Not initially.
Okay, go on.
Initially.
No, we went round actually having a look. Do you remember this, Pete?
Yeah.
Yeah. Peter was very much in all of this right from the very beginning, because you came up from Knighton, didn't you, as an elder?
We were elected within 6 months.
Yeah. And we went round having a look to see what we could find. So we looked at land and we looked at buildings first, which was all very exciting. And then this came up, didn't it?
And
this
what was
came
it
on
like
market.
when you first saw it? Like,
Well, when we first walked in all honesty, that's what Stephen and I saw. Not quite so full as that. No.
Well, not so old as that, but the machines were considerably newer. The chefs were not there, but all the pipework and everything else was there. And it was like a parquet floor, you know, the old wooden parquet floors? It was and covered in machine oil. That was there. You saw the picture beforehand as well, the one that you had before. Well, that's where the gates were still there when we came, and they were still loading lorries in there as well.
yeah.
Okay.
The bit I really want to say, if we can go back to the other picture. When we first saw this building, one of the reasons why on a Sunday morning when we're here and we're in that worship room where we're worshipping, it's hardly a Sunday morning when I don't shed a tear, because I look around at God's vision. He had the vision for this place, and what we saw were just a few people in that room, all working solidly. And the excitement, in actual fact, of walking into this place and actually believing that this is what God wanted.
And that's, I guess, what I wanted to touch on. Like, to walk into this place, which was a factory, and have the vision. What was the vision that kind of drove the team forward? What was the hope of what this place would become?
We wanted to be a community church. So effectively, we wanted it to be a place where people came. You know, a church is not a load of people, it's a place where people come, you know, but the people are the church. And we wanted, you know, we were starting to look around, so we knew this is we had an outreach, we had lots of things going on, and of course, a lot of the stuff is still going on, of course, which is really great. And it's grown, which is even better. But we stood there, right in the middle of Wixton, you know, and the whole idea was to be there in the middle, to be known and reach out. I said we had a lot of community stuff, and also the other thing was, of course, to actually be part, to be able to be used. So the building wasn't just going to be a church; it was going to be a multi-use building, which it was for quite a long time, as we know.
When initially we were just a church up at the school, and for those first 3 years, this is right. I mean, Pete, you can back us up on this, can't you? That we were just a church, but the steering committee within that started to get a vision for what God wanted beyond that. And what the Lord did was he grew the vision, because I think probably if the vision had been given to start with, it would have been incredibly scary. Well, it's scary anyway, but it grew. It grew from that it being a church where the church came into a meeting of people reaching out into the community, for this to be where we invited people in and we met people out there, a community centre. That was the point.
And a community hub. And I got some photos here of some of the.
Of course, this is the main hall when we took all the machinery was out. So this is how we got. Do you know how we got it, by the way? Do you know the story about how we got this building? Okay. Well, it came on the market, so we decided we'll have a look at buying it. I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was £198,500. I think they wanted you for it initially.
And a half.
About right?
200, and I think we got it for 192.
Yeah, that's right. They wanted 200, yeah. Anyway, so we decided that, okay, do we go forward? So we decided what we'll do, we'll have a gift day. And if we raise £100, £100,000, then God wants us to go forward with this. So we had a gift day. Now, bear in mind, there were 68 members of the church at that particular time, but we're being supported, of course, by Knighton and other areas as well. So we had this gift day. We all met round at Paul Dickens' house afterwards. Pete gave us numbers, and we thought, oh, we only got £146,000 that day.
So you had 66 members and you got 146,000.
Yeah, but don't forget, we'd also got help from
Yeah.
Knighton and all the people like that. And there's one or two other churches sort of put a load of money in as well. So we thought, oh, right,
You've got to do this now.
we're going to have to do this. Anyway, so we came to sign, once again, 146, that's with gift aid, I think, if I remember. Anyway, so we come to the...
We're looking to Pete because Pete was crunching all the numbers at the time, weren't you, Pete?
Yeah, Pete always brought the bad news, and yeah, we can go and do it now. And anyway, we came to buy it, and everybody, they drew all the contracts up and everything else, and we came to sign it, and we got, I think it was £198,000 in the bank at that particular time. We were £500 short. And we thought, oh crumbs. Anyway, Andy Oakley, one of the guys at the time, went up on the roof, and there's a massive big oil tank full of heating oil. So we sold it for £500. And that's how it came. So we're talking about this building has been provided. We had no choice. We asked the question, do we go? And God said, of course you do.
And built on prayer as well. Like, this looks like the main hall to me.
This is 6:30. Most mornings, it's in the main hall. I'd say, brother, look. And we used to have a prayer time, and then we get on with some works. Weekends we worked, evenings we worked. All of the inside of this building, we took apart ourselves. We took it out. There's one thing I've got to tell you about, because it's one of these things I'll remember. See this? Do you see this? One of my lasting impressions I get is Anna Howard's driving a mini digger down this hallway, smashing these things up.
Not so many digger.
Not that one. No, it wasn't that one. Okay.
But this may sound about us doing it, people doing it. Okay, that we were the hands and the feet, but this is all about God's vision. This is all about the Lord's vision. And we just want to give glory to God for doing this. This is all about what he provided. And yes, okay, so people listened, and there was a large group of people that were doing this. And we had a lovely lady called Mary Bulwer who didn't feel that she could do anything physically as such, but she made the tea and she brought in cakes and she prayed, and she was a prayer. She was one of these people that just prayed and prayed and prayed. And you know what? You're absolutely right. This place is built on prayer.
And then it started to progress.
It did. Can I just tell you one other thing as well? Not only did we buy a building, but we also gained a ghost. Just about here, there used to be a set of stairs that went down to the basement.
Well, that's what I said.
And my mum has been in hosiery all of her life. She didn't work here, but she knew a lot of the girls who worked at Ladies' Pride at the time. And they all swore blind there was a ghost living in the cellar. So what do? We just went round and we prayed it out. And guess what? We've never seen a ghost.
It's not a ghost. Not a ghost anymore. Guys, and then it developed and became the King Centre that we know and love. Guys, thank you so much for sharing.
There is one thing I need to say, and I think Helen's already mentioned it, but I sat here the other day at the end, and I looked, and worship was going on, people were singing, and the kids were there, and this was the vision. This is what we saw when we first time we saw this building, and it was so real at the time. These things came back, and you can actually, you see these things, this time-lapse photography where you see a building change, or a flower open. I saw the actual change from the old factories we moved in to the bright, room that we have now for worship. And this is what we saw when we bought this building all those years ago. This is what God wanted us to do at that particular time. We were so blessed because we had all the skills we needed. We had architects, we had quantity surveyors, we had lighting people,
All from within the
all
church.
from within the church. So a lot of the stuff we could do ourselves. But the big thing about it was that, and I think this is the important part, and I think it's something you'll be talking about later. We raised the money to buy it, but that wasn't the start. That wasn't the end. We had to raise the money.
How much did it cost?
2.5 million, was it?
No, about a million,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
at the end, I think it was then, but right at the end, somewhere in the back of my mind was, including buying the building and everything else, it was around about 2.5%. I thought, no, not that much.
We're
Okay.
talking a significant
We're
amount
talking
of
about-
money.
So we had to raise the money. People gave. They gave time. As I said, every morning we were sitting, we met and prayed. Every weekend, every evening, we worked, to strip it out. All of the stuff that's gone. Skips were there. We filled them up. We had pneumatic drills down here where the lorries came in. There was tons of concrete to shift. I've never used a pneumatic drill until I started coming to church. And not only that, but we raised the money. People gave sacrificially. It was when we went to that gift day, people didn't go on holiday. They didn't change the car, didn't have a kitchen done. That was the kind of things that people did. So
There was one family that sold their house, and rather than actually keeping the money they'd made on it, they gave it to the church. And it was a substantial amount of money.
Thank you, guys. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you. I think the point is we're not. A building isn't a temple. Like, it's not about the building. The building is a tool. It's a tool for ministry growth. It's a tool for kingdom growth. Like, if it ever becomes about the building, we're getting something wrong. The reality is the building is there to help us in the mission that God is calling us to do. And I want us to bear that in mind. And so that's where we've come from. Where are we at? This one any better? Yeah, let's give it this one. We have a dodgy connection. So where are we at then? I want to talk through kind of how TKC, how the King Centre is kind of being used currently. So on a Monday, and this is the things that happen, regularly. So we have counselling sessions that Jakin provides, which is pregnancy counselling, bereavement counselling, that kind of thing. We have Leslie meets with small groups of vulnerable parents on a Monday morning. We have food bank session on the Monday evening. On Tuesdays, we have our wonderful coffee morning, which was just yesterday. And they have just in this room a whole load of older and isolated and more vulnerable folk, and a great buzz. They're the loudest people that we have in our building, I think. On Thursdays, a busy day, we have tots in the morning. We have a food bank session. We have the new Hub Club, which essentially is another coffee morning in the afternoon. The council and the local NHS providers approached us to put something on that we could care for people who needed a little bit of company and support, so we're putting that on kind of in partnership with them. There was someone on the high street today advertising that session, completely not asked by us, from the council on a stand, handing out invites people to come to our church. So that's fun, isn't it? And we're excited to see where that grows. And then we have Thursday Night Inferno on a Thursday as well, which gives the coffee morning a run for its money in terms of noise sometimes. On Fridays, we have more tot session, and then obviously on Sundays, we have a whole plethora of stuff. Sunday gatherings, first evening gathering this week, okay? Come to that one, please. Band practices, lunches, training sessions, prayer meetings, you name it. We do it on a Sunday. But then there's a whole load of other things that happen during the week, irregularly or sporadically, or happening just happening throughout the week. So the Hope Hub, this old sports hall, is now, if you haven't been up to the old sports hall, have a look. Up the stairs at the back of the church, it's a charity shop that we can bless folk from our community with. So using that whole space. We have CAP meetings and events. There was a CAP coffee morning this week. Safe Families, which are a charity supporting vulnerable families, they rent out the old church office upstairs at the back. We run training events for charities. We've had a couple of training events for the charity. They've been training social workers and stuff in our main hall, and that's really fun. Family support, Leslie does a lot of that from here as well. We've run adoption and fostering support groups and hosted that. We do pastoral care from here. We run small groups out of here, and I'm sure there's a whole load of stuff that I've forgotten. Oh, there you go. I put a photo of the hub in case, so you don't need to go up now, but please do. But that's what it looks like, the old sports hall there. And then right now, this is phase 4. This big empty space that the food bank had the whole of, particularly during COVID, but with them moving out to a regional distribution centre because they've outgrown the space. The space is now free for us to use and develop. So that's where we're at. Here's a question: where are we going, or where do we feel like the Lord might be leading us? At the start of the year, we were praying as a leadership team about the church, not particularly about this, but about the church family. And he gave us a really clear picture of this. A snake shedding its skin. There we go. And the idea is that when a snake outgrows its skin, it needs to get ready. And the new skin enables the snake to grow even more. And there's a sense that actually the Lord wants to prepare us for growth, that we believe we're entering a season where we're going to grow, and the Lord is going to prepare us for growth. We want to be an authentic community. Extravagant worship is shaped by the word moving in the Spirit, driven by prayer and serving our community. Those are the 6 values. And we want this to be a base and a hub for that, particularly a base from which we can serve our community well. And we believe the Lord wants us to grow in that, wants us to grow numerically, and we actually need to prepare for that. And so that's kind of what's driving this. And so there are 3 areas, really, that we are looking at developing. And because what happened was we got Mayway in, who are a Christian construction company, and we said we want to develop phase 4, and we showed them around, and we showed them around the building, and they said, well, you can just develop phase 4, but actually it's sensible to have a bit of more of a holistic idea of the building. And so there was 3 areas particularly that they identified that we could develop. And first is the coffee lounge. So here, this is the room you're in now, the space you're in now. We were really keen when we spoke to Mayway to have a bigger kitchen. The kitchen's just through that door there, and it's functional for what it has been doing, but the reality is if we want to grow in terms of providing meals for church family, but also for community, we need more space. And we initially thought about putting that upstairs, but Mayway were very clear. They said, you want your kitchen where most people are going to be, and that's here. And so they have proposed to us that we use that space just there and put a kitchen in there. It'll be fully kitted out and using more industrial kind of sized stuff, and that we can do mass scale catering if we need to, and when we need to. And because of that, the yellow piece on your little plans there, we can then remodel this area here. We wouldn't need that coffee bar anymore. Have you noticed on a Sunday when people come out of the main hall, is a bit of a bottleneck there? It's a bit cramped because everyone wants to get coffee and everyone wants to chat. So we would look at kind of getting rid of that, opening that up, and so it's just a bit more of an airy space. So maybe just a little bit less claustrophobic. And then the old kitchen will become a storeroom, because storerooms are really, really important in churches, in church buildings. And so we'd clear that out of all the kitchen stuff, and we'd put a storeroom in there. And that's the yellow section. The second area, and this is a more minor one, I guess, is the reception area. Now, the story of the King Centre is that this building was used for room hire, it was used as a nursery as well, and so it was important for the reception area to feel more official. We had Tim behind the desk, and he'd be welcoming people in and did a fantastic job at that. Now, as we've changed over the past couple of years, actually, the kinds of people maybe we have in the building and that doing less room hire means that it's less important that it looks formal, and actually it's more important that it looks welcoming. And so we love that desk. We don't think it's a massively welcoming structure. And so we're basically going to want to take that out completely and have that as a more comfortable seating area. Maybe get a coffee machine in there. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But just a place that while people are waiting for meetings or whatever, they could come and sit there and relax. Yeah. And then the third area, and this is the big one, is phase 4. That's what it looks like at the moment. A big empty space. There's food bank on there because food bank were on there when they came here. And you may not, if you've been up there, you may even not notice this area here. So as you come in, so that's this side. As you come in here, just halfway through on the right, there's a big area there. It's actually directly above these toilets here. And what Mary have proposed is something like this. So dividing it up into 4 spaces with a corridor running down there. Now these walls on this plan are fixed, but actually they could be movable walls. So they could be folded away, so you could have a big space or 4 smaller spaces. We're suggesting that what we would do is actually have just this wall removable. But we're kind of discussing that at the moment. So you could have 2 smaller spaces and 1 bigger space. There's different sizes available, which we think is a good feel. But you could have this space as 1 big space there, which we think would be a nice sizable space. And then here, we would suggest turning these into toilets. So they've put nominally there 3 toilets, a disabled toilet, / wet room, so with a shower, potentially, if the Lord leads us to I guess minister among the homeless, then that could be helpful. Baby change, a tea point here as well, because if we were going to have groups up here, it's helpful to have tea and coffee making facilities there. So those are the 3 areas. And this is the big one, but I wanted to show you it all because it is more of a holistic view. And what this allows us to do is it's neutral. There's nothing that's specifically ascribed for anything, but it allows us options moving forward. It makes the space usable, which at the moment it isn't. And so moving forward, I mean, you could do anything with it. If you wanted to run big kids work up there on a Sunday, we could do that. If you wanted to hire it out to groups midweek, we could do that. If we wanted to base all our small groups here on the same night, we could do that. If we wanted to expand the hub, we could do that. If we wanted to grow a prayer and counselling ministry so that there are all the different spaces using, we could do that. It gives us room to grow into basically whatever the Lord has next. Now, one thing that we are considering, we're in a conversation with a charity called TLG. And TLG is an education charity, Christian charity that partners with churches with the aim of supporting children and young people who aren't engaging with education. And one of the key things they do is they basically set up, essentially, units for children who have been excluded or are going to be excluded. And we are in conversations with them at the moment as to whether this church building be a good place to host something like that in the kind of over the long term. So have this as a place that actually we essentially run a school out of. And that's a conversation for a future day, but I wanted just to drop that in so you can be praying as we have meetings with them about that. So this is kind of what we're thinking. And you were probably going, great, how much are they going to cost? So here are some of the costs that we've been provisionally quoted. So the new kitchen, talked about there, is quoted at £76,000. That includes the actual kitchen itself, which was, I think, 25. Getting rid of the old coffee bar and tidying that up and changing that storeroom, £14,000. Getting rid of reception, 1.5. The toilet area upstairs, so that green bit, they've provisionally quoted that at £60,000. Phase 4, the purple bit, 138. Now, that is if all of the doors, if all of the walls are sliding walls. It was about £23,000 to have 3 sliding walls. So the less you have, obviously the less that costs. And then other things, admin, paperwork, drawings, designs, about £11,000, which comes to the grand total of basically £300,000. So that's what we've been quoted initially. We can save some money, however, by doing all the jobs in one go. So those are quoted as if they are 5 separate projects, each area, each colour being different. The more we do in one go, the cheaper it is, okay? Because they're already here on site. And that would save actually a significant amount of money if we were to do it all in one go. Doing some of the work ourselves. I mean, it was amazing to hear what happened when they first did the building. I hate to think how much it would have cost if it was contractors doing all of the work and not driving the little diggers in the main hall. So the more work we can do ourselves, we can take down walls, if we can put up stud walls, if we can paint, if we can decorate, if we can do some of the excavation and taking out of various bits of bobs. If you can take a sledgehammer to a reception desk, then that will save us money and also probably be quite fun. There has been conversation about an organisation that's closed down recently that will be getting rid of their kitchen appliances. They're pretty much brand new, but they've closed down, and so there is possible that we could get those to use there. That may or may not happen, but that's possible. And then pursuing grant funding. Maybe there's grant funding available from Christian charities or perhaps secular charities, depending on what we use the spaces for, that could supplement any income that we get from giving. So these are the plans that we want to present to you. Really, now it's over to you. And so what I want you to do is just turn into groups around you and just spend the next however long just chatting this through. What are your initial thoughts? What questions do you have? What excites you? What worries you? What have we missed? What do we need to think about? Are we missing something glaring? Have we done something stupid? Like, we're a few people brainstorming with very limited understanding of buildings between us, but you guys will have a much wider experience base. You'll see things we don't. So I want to give a good time for you to now think, and we're going to feedback, and hopefully I'll answer some of your questions and we'll take on board some of your comments as well. If you're watching online, then again, please have a look at some of these things. Just have a think, and just pop in the chat in the live comments what your thoughts are, any questions that you have, and we'll hopefully get to those as well. Great, over to you. Yeah, so he's part of the coaches that have been crickets and been involved in those kind of things. So yeah, really exciting. So I think it's for me, I think it's about serving as our core aim is bringing them into where we live. And for when people walk in the building, to feel the presence of God and to feel like so yeah, so I'm always excited. I'm a big person anyway, so you pay other people to do details stuff. But no, I think it's really exciting. It's a great dream and vision for how God wants to use this place and this community. And so yeah, so I'm married to Lucy, so we've been here for about 2 years. So I knew Matt, I know where we used to work. So I know him. Moved up from London 2 years ago. Basically, kids like young kids.
No, I think even if one
Oh, just being part of, kind of dreaming big. So it's interesting. So Alaska was a similar kind of factory. So it used to be a factory. So it had the same kind of layout. So there's quite a like a warren kind of rooms everywhere. That's the building, same footprint below. So yeah, so we kind of rehoused it, made it so it had a really nice sanctuary. Downstairs we had music rooms for music for school students, things like that. We had a very similar welcome area in there for toddler groups. We had a place called the Extra Smile Project. We used to go to people's homes and kind of, once in a while we used to help sing the menus and we got the property now and help their rooms, yeah, very similar kind of outlook to yeah, and they did the same kind of thing in the phases. Now they just one of the things we used to do is sit down with leaders, your background, you're doing it really well here, but you know, some other things that schools might need, like after school activities that are really progressive people, you know, we're here for community rather than okay, let's have a few more minutes. I guess the main thing is it ties into values as well. I think one of the main things that ties into the values as well, because it can be a service. Racially balance. These are our core values. How does that fit in? Okay. Okay, the way I suggest this goes is bring your comments or questions this way. I will then repeat them for the sake of the people watching online, and then we'll have a chat about them. I've asked Gail if she'll take some notes because I don't want to be typing while I'm listening. I want to be listening, and then we'll get those afterwards. Just so you know, guys in the room, there are probably as many people watching online as there are here, probably more actually. So that's quite fun. Great. Who wants to start? Jenny has a suggestion.
I have already spoken with one of the elders about it when I was showing where the new kitchen would be. I would be very reluctant to do away with the separate coffee bar, because if you're running an event, as we did last summer, and serving tea and coffee, if there's tea and coffee, people will always come to tea and coffee. And when it came to the fruit prep, I basically had to say, can you stop serving tea and coffee? Because of the lack of room. So for me, I think if you were running a conference and an event with food, that the kitchen was purely for food. I'm not saying you would never serve tea and coffee, but I think for a conference it would be actually a good idea to keep that coffee area for serving tea and coffee while there's food prep going on.
Okay, so Jenny's just made the point that actually for a conference, having a separate area for serving tea and coffee versus an area for making food can be helpful. And yet one way we could do that is by keeping the coffee bar, keeping the kitchen there. Another way we can do that is by having a coffee tea serving point somewhere else that's kind of mobile as well. So I hadn't thought of that. We've got it on the notes minutes, so we'll take it. Helen.
We also did just discuss the possibility, if you wanted to widen that area and remove that coffee area there and bring it, so you put a kitchen here and you have your coffee bar in that outpost just there.
Okay, let me get the plan up. So if you notice here on the plan, at the moment, this is called a store, but it could feasibly be a coffee serving point. Helen just made the point that you could use this space here, which is currently the library, the lesser used library, as a point to serve tea and coffee from. Thank you, that's helpful. Yeah. So Steve's just asking whether or not we've got a coffee point upstairs, and yes. So if you look here in the green area, we've kind of put in a tea point there, because as soon as we mentioned this, some of the people on the leadership team who work with children saying, please can we have tea upstairs if we're going to be far away from everyone. So we think that'll be a good space for it as well. One of the big problems with this building is the lack of tea and coffee facilities upstairs. It's a serious problem, guys. It's a big issue. And toilets, yes. Yes. Steve. Okay. So the question about the lift. And the question is there money in the budget for the lift? The reality is there is no budget. The budget is whatever you guys give me. So, so if you want to lift, absolutely fine. You can pay for a lift if you want. But there's suggestions as well when we ran this past Graham and Debbie Frith about whether or not we think about putting a lift in the stairwell just there. So you actually have two, which means if one breaks down, you have. But that'd be a significant expenditure. So we've tried to be as lean as possible. If you want us to go above and beyond, that's absolutely fine. We can factor that in, but that will have a significant increase in the overheads. So there's big love for a second lift, is what I'm hearing. Yeah, one that actually goes all the way down to the basement. Don't know the feasibility of that engineering-wise, but that's certainly something we could look into. Nick's saying that once we're looking at prices, 100k plus for a lift. But there may well be grant funding available for stuff like that. Any other questions? I'm sure there are. So using the space behind the double doors here in the coffee lounge. So there's a fire escape out there. So we want to keep that as clear as possible. It's probably as cluttered as it can be right now. We could look at remodeling. Did you have any ideas about what we might use it for? Just trying to be more efficient. Yes, so we could gain a little bit, possibly a little bit into the main hall. I think the gain from using that space would probably be minimal. You'd have to then, it goes steps down, so you probably have to level it across and stuff like that as well. So yeah, it feels a bit like dead space at the moment, doesn't it? But it may well have to stay that way. So again, that's something we've talked about. We haven't got it in these plans. If there seems to be a lot of need for that, we would certainly look at that. I speak to people and people are torn on the current access. I spoke to someone yesterday who she is the additional needs consultant for the Evangelical Alliance. She happened to be in the building. She said, this is the most accessible church in Leicester, which may well be a compliment to us, may well be an insult to all the other churches in Leicester. I didn't quite get to the bottom of that. And so we'd have to weigh up cost benefit as to whether or not putting a lift up, one of those platform lifts up just over here would be beneficial or not. So have the plans gone out for tender, or is it just one company? We've just spoken to Mayway at the moment. The reason we've just spoken to Mayway is because they're basically the company everyone uses. They did the building originally. Now, with a project of this scale, now in the grand scheme of things, this isn't a very big scale project in terms of church building projects. For us, it feels quite big though, right? And so we're not just going to go with one quote. Once we have an absolutely firm idea of what we want to do, we will go to at least two, I think ideally three building companies. Mayway will be one of them, and we would we'll get quotes from there. And then we won't necessarily go with the cheapest, but we will weigh up price with ability to understand vision and churches and things like that as well. So we're not just going to go ahead with one quote on this. That wouldn't be doing due diligence. Nick just asked if we can repeat the questions so that you guys can hear them. Yes. Yes, so Nay was just asked about soundproofing, and the comment was that the rooms upstairs need to be, as far as is practical, soundproofed. Yes, completely agree on a number of levels. One, if you've got counselling going on or different sessions going on, you need to be able to, you're never going to be able to get it so you can't hear, particularly if there's a sliding wall. But also people with hearing impairments, actually cross-contamination of noise can be quite distracting and quite hard work. So we want to try and limit that as much as possible. Phil Bainan, the question was, can the hearing loop be extended? My understanding is the loop is in the main hall only right now. So I guess the question is, can we have another hearing loop at some point? No. Yeah. So no, talking about that you can get portable hearing loops, which I think it probably makes sense to have a few of those just for sessions anyway. And you know, if we have people with hearing impairments, actually, it's not too hard to have a little clip-on mic if you're presenting from the front, is it? So that's certainly something we'll look into. Phil's just said it can be extended easily or another loop added. So thank you, Phil, for that. Justin.
I've got two questions. So the first one's really important because it comes from home, from girls at home, saying, can they talk about colour schemes? Really important one. So the second one is I had a thought, which is in our previous joke, it was a similar kind of style of building and activity and community. And you might have thought this already happens already, but it's a way that you, for security reasons, that you can isolate parts of the building. So for example, if you had a community activity that was just based upstairs or just in the foyer, can it be secure so the whole building is not opened up and it gives less responsibility to the person that got the building and all that kind of stuff? So it's self-isolating that one.
So Justin asked one very important question and one minor question. The very important question is about colour scheme, and I think we're going with pink everywhere. We haven't gone as far as colour scheme. What we will do, if and when we come to doing this, is we'll have a team together who will talk about all that really dull stuff that I have no interest in whatsoever. But for some reason, some people find it incredibly exciting, like colour scheme. We are one body, many parts. And some of us have skills in colours, I do not. And the other question was, can we actually isolate various parts of the building for security? And I can see an immediate application for this. If we do partner with TLG and we have a school essentially running in the building, that needs to be isolated. That needs to be not accessible unless you have certain codes. And that's actually a prerequisite of them being able to work with you. So they're coming down on a site visit early in May, and that'll be one of the things they'll be able to assess. The question is it important, or should we factor in the ability to do that wider in the church? Do we isolate the main hall? Can we isolate the upstairs? That's a great question, and I think we should make that and answer that. Pete?
And on that point, obviously, when the nursery was here, the nursery was isolated.
Yes, the nursery was isolated. It has a door with a code on it, and only certain people knew that code. Nick? Oh, very good. One at a time, please. Nick would like to know if he should read the questions on the chat. Very good. That joke's not going to get old, is it? Okay. Will we be able to use the building while this is happening? It depends what we decide to do. So upstairs is currently not being used. So there is no reason that the building can't be fully functional, I would imagine, while that's going on. Phil Bainham, please correct me if that is false. I would imagine this area, this will be a small job here that may not disrupt many weeks, if any weeks. This would be more significant, so we would need to look at whether we can find access a different way coming through the side straight into the main hall. We've got fire escapes. We've got a fire. I got the bin through a fire escape a few weeks ago in a sermon. You can check the sermons on YouTube. There's one at the far end of the hall. There's one that way. There's also one that way. So there will be ways into the hall. It may be we decide actually it's just easier to either meet in small groups for a season, or to hire a school hall for a season. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
We've got the corridor around the back there anyway.
Yeah. So you can come in here, go through the nursery into the main hall. That way, it may be we choose not to serve tea and coffee for a few weeks. Nick. Yeah, money questions.
Do we need to raise the full 300k, or are there reserves that can bring that down? Because we already have some reserves to bring it down.
So, do we need to raise the full £300,000? And that's not a definite figure either, but hypothetically £300,000. Do we need to raise that, or are there some reserves? We do have some reserves, and that we can use. We're keen to not use all of those. The reason being, say we use all of the money in our reserves, which is not an insignificant amount of money on this building project, and then 2 weeks later the roof goes, then we don't necessarily think it'd be a wise idea to spend all of our reserves on this. We may spend a portion of it. I think realistically we're hoping to raise as much as possible, and then we'll take it from there. Another option I thought, and I don't know if this is even possible, but there may be possibility of mortgages and that kind of thing as well. I don't even know if that's possible on commercial buildings. But
We had a mortgage when we first started.
Pete says there was a mortgage when we first started, so we can look at a number of ways to raise funds. When do envisage the start going to be? Again, that really depends how long this consultation procedure goes. So what we'll need to do, and kind of this is in the moving forward section, is we get feedback from you. We go and get some plans redesigned so we know exactly what we want. We get our 3 quotes, and then at that point we start fundraising. Depending on how fundraising goes will depend on when we start. Mrs. G. Will phase 4 become phase 1? We'll have to come up with a new name for it, won't we? I think the Sugask Wing. I think. All in favour? Okay. All against? And there was a hand over here. I'm just going to interrupt Nick and there was a question over here as well. Helen.
Is everybody looking at grants at the moment?
I've had a number sent to me. The grants will depend on what we want to do with it.
Because it might well be worth having a chat with we've got with the Luke who have just been down this very road.
Okay. So Helen's making the point, it might be worth chatting with other churches who've just gone down this road about grants and so on and so forth. If you're in an Anglican church, you get money thrown at you for stuff like this. So maybe we should affiliate. All in favour? Okay, less popular than the Susan Gask Wing. Okay. Nick, coming back to you. Leslie says we should do it and we shouldn't worry about the cost.
Ruth has a question on
Will there be storage for tots so that we won't need to go down to the basement? That is something that we need to minute in and we need to really carefully think through. At the moment, there's a whole lot of things up in the air. TLG is up in the air. It may be that TLG come down and say, yes, we go for it, and we decide, yes, we want to go for it, and they say, we want to use a different area of the building, not phase 4. So that will affect things. It maybe doesn't happen. So there's a big unknown there that we want to kind of explore and then come back. But I think storage is important. We will not be able to store everything that's down in the basement, not in the basement, because there's a lot of tot stuff. So we're not going to be able to store all of that up here. We may be able to store some of it, depending on various other things. If we have a lift down there, that might make the journey up slightly easier and might save a few years off Leslie's back, which would be good. Nick, have you got any more? Movable walls would be good. Question about phasing, whether or not phasing would be good in terms of keeping use of the church. The reality is there are seasons that actually we won't necessarily need to use the church. So you're hearing it here first. Over the summer holidays, we're not going to be having any church Sunday gatherings in the church building unless it rains. We're going to be on the park every Sunday. So summer would be a great time to do a building project if we're not using the church building as much. But Nick made the comment that actually none of this seems to be that prohibitive in how we use the church building for significant periods of time. Is there any more questions in the room? Yeah, Marilyn.
Sorry, it's really nitty-gritty and detail-oriented.
Lovely.
I was just wondering about, what you said about the shower and possibly homeless ministry and things. It's somewhere in, I don't know where area, or a bit upstairs or somewhere downstairs here. We could combine the washing machine and the tumble dryer into one place and make like a laundry so that we could wash things in if we had to.
Marilyn raised the not small picture, but actually quite important question of actually could we have a laundry space rather than we have a washing machine and tumble dryer in very different parts of the building? Could we coordinate those and put them together? So actually, if we were to say have a ministry among people who are homeless, that we could have those in the same place and point them to a laundry space, whether that be incorporated with the wet room or whatever. Or put somewhere else. Kelly. No, we don't have. So, do we have a rough idea of how long it will take if we do it all at the same time? We don't. We're not talking a year. We're talking much less than that. I suspect we're talking a few months max. And there are many advantages to doing it all at once. Personally, I think the only thing that will prohibit us doing it all at once is finances. And finances suggest there's not the appetite to do it all, so we would probably then look to phase it. We could have Susan Gaswing phase 1, Susan Gaswing phase 2, or 3 if we need to. Pete.
I'd just like to commend you and the elders for bringing something to us. We've been sitting here about 15 years with no movement whatsoever, so it's like to commend you guys for all the work you've done.
Thanks. Pete said some nice things, but I think it does raise the point that actually there was a real sense we just need to do something. So even just for Sundays. So this isn't about Sundays. This is about a tool for ministry throughout the week. But even for Sundays, we need the space for our kids' work. And as we grow, the space we have is becoming even more sustainable. Now, at some point, God willing, we'll plant, and so we'll shrink, but then we'll grow again. And so we need more space, even just for Sundays, to grow into our kids' work and to do that well. And actually, there's lots of different ways we can do kids' work on a Sunday if we have more space. Gail. do we have a plan of how we're going to do the fundraising? Like, would we do the church bank account or just giving or whatever? Haven't come to that yet. Pete, though, knows presumably.
No, I don't know. But what I was going to say is, when we originally thought about doing this building, we did exactly as you did last Sunday. We did a pledge day. So I think that would be the way for the community to get efficiency.
Yeah.
And then we can sort it out and then collect the money and afterwards.
Yeah. So the idea of doing a pledge day. Now, whether we do a pledge day and people will then give money into a bank account or our bank account or to just give it is not decided yet. We'll look at the best ways and the most cost-effective ways of doing that. Have you got anything else online? Will the nursery rooms remain the same round down the back? They're very useful at the moment, both for Sundays and for some of the stuff Leslie's doing midweek. I'll want to wait until we have a bit more of a clear idea of TLG before we kind of comment on that. Because if phase 4 isn't an area they would want to use, then the nursery is likely to be a ready-made area that will be useful for them. But that will need a whole kind of rethink of Sunday kids work. So that's a good question. And we'll come back to you on that. At the moment, the plans we've presented, they're staying as they are. Kelly. So could we store things better in the nursery, right? Or are you saying use the nursery space for storage?
No, still have them for the Sunday service and Sunday, this, that and the other, and obviously what Leslie does. But is there a way we can look at if storage cupboards could be in there somewhere, or just better use of the space for storage?
So can we implement storage better in the nursery spaces? Yes, so we could certainly look at that. And also, if that wing is staying as it is, you've got an office there at the back, which is currently full of junk that could also be used for storage quite comfortably. That some of the bigger things that are a pain to take out of the basement could go in there. Yes. Yeah, so the question is how we can make the building as inclusive as possible for those with sensory needs and additional needs. Great question. I'm going to... Yes, that's what I'm saying. So I'm going to throw it back to you. And my suggestion is that you have a think and maybe meet up with Kathy and come up with like a, this is what we would like in an ideal world, and we see if we can incorporate it in. At the moment, the thinking is keep everything as flexible as possible, but within that there may well be room to work within those parameters. Were you going to say something? Okay. Yeah, Amy's just given a contact that could help with some of those ideas. Are you happy to link them up? Yeah. Great. Justin.
I'm just going to throw in New Wine Ministry accessible will be a great resource for that as well. They're quite expert on those.
Yes, New Wine Accessible Ministry is kind of a department of New Wine that we could go to kind of liaise with them. They've got a conference coming up, haven't they? Accessible Church Conference. Debbie, do you want to go book onto an Accessible Church Conference? Okay, we'll chat afterwards. Okay, I think a few more. I want to finish with prayer, and so I don't want to go on too late, but I think it's time for a couple more questions. Yeah.
started the building originally. And we sold it as a community building. So we went out to lots of different places. Are we going to do this time? Are we going to send it effectively as a church? Or we going to always put it open it up? Because it kind of opens up to the areas we go for. The only problem, of course, is with that is that very often there is only money providing conditions. I mean, if you go to a council building, you cannot be you cannot actually have a building totally open to all things. And we kind of turn things down and let these things go. So we think that we thought that was the other way we were thinking. So what we're going for this time, we're going to have a church, we're going to have a building that is open to the community.
Yes, so Stephen's asking, really, if I understand it correctly, what is this building for? And that will affect grants and things like that. Okay, I want to try and make this as clear as possible. So give me a second just to get my thoughts in order. We are a community building, and we aren't a community building. So we are a community building in that we want to use this building to bless and serve our community as a way of introducing them to the Lord Jesus. Okay? So we will not be going back to room hire the way it was before. Because for this next season, that was good for that season. For this next season, I struggle to see significant kingdom value in having people in the building for the sake of having them in the building. So someone hiring a room here to do a yoga class where they have no link with anyone in the church and no link and no real pathway into engaging with church community. I don't see why we should offer that rather than anyone else. We're a church and we have a unique thing that we can offer. And so there are places they can go to for that. It takes resources, it takes energy, it takes time to have that kind of infrastructure to be able to do that. What I love is that the council and the local NHS have come to us and said, we want to use this building to serve the community on a Thursday afternoon. The hope is that will expand, maybe to fill a whole day. Actually, this is a centre, which is a drop-in centre that the council use and the local GP social prescribers use, and advocacy groups and food bank, and it's a kind of coffee cafe feel. That's brilliant because we'll have church folk there and they're brushing shoulders with church folk. And so we've got people in the building, we're meeting a real need. We're doing it to bless our community. We're not asking for money from people for it. And that's really key. We want to, as much as possible, give this building away because our God is generous and we want to be generous to our community. And so having people in the building brushing shoulders with Christians, meeting a need, that is where we want to be. And actually, I'm really excited by the partnership that we have on a Thursday afternoon. I'm excited, and I think that could open up avenues for funding. But we're not doing it to open up avenues for funding. We're doing it because we believe it's an opportunity to show God's love in a really practical way. Is that clear?
Yeah. To follow on from that, is that any money we get will be aligned with those values, and we won't be binding ourselves to any requirements that fall outside of that.
Yes, so any money we get from funding, we're not going to get money and compromise the vision that we have to be a Jesus-shaped blessing to our community. There are a few hands up after that. Kelly, you were first.
Just with the Hub Club.
That's the Thursday afternoon, the Hub Club, yeah.
We've only had 2 weeks and we've already got some consistent 2 weeks in church. I was talking with you guys and, meeting new people and feeling welcomed and not judged. So already in what people may see as a non-Christian event, there's them coming into the church and they're feeling that.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for the one.
Yeah, so the Thursday afternoons, the GP health, the social prescribers are the ones running the session. We're kind of providing the space and providing people to meet and mingle and serve tea and coffee. We've already had someone come to church off the back of it. We had someone else come to church recently off the back of coffee morning. So like these things are slowly starting to bear some fruit as well. One more. And then I'll take one more from the room, I think. Are we considering the energy situation and sustainability? The glib answer is the energy situation is a flipping nightmare, isn't it? And anything we do is going to be an absolute nightmare. Sustainability, the energy situation isn't sustainable. And the government are going to have to do something about it. I don't think that should affect what we do. It may affect how much people can give. I've literally had an email just before I came out here, and my gas electric bills are doubling, like the direct debit. So I'm aware of the situation. And if that means we have to push things back, we have to push things back. Amy. Random question, could you look at solar panels? Nick can look at solar panels. That's his job.
So the current changes that are happening, are changing the return on investment from solar from 10 years down to about 3 or 4 years, and it's going to change everything. And we need to consider additional heat demand in the new area, which will probably be done through heat pumps or whatever. But we've not included it in this, how we're going to heat it and all that stuff, but we're certainly looking at it. There may need to be some investment in energy infrastructure over a 5-year term, something like that, which isn't part of today.
Nick's just saying we need to think about energy infrastructure in this whole thing, solar panels, heat pumps, whatever it is. Okay, one more. Is there anything that we have that's current, that's sellable? If there's anything that we have that is sellable, we will flog it. And if you are an eBayer or a Facebook marketplacer, we want to hear from you to get any income possible. Yeah, and there is some stuff still in phase 4 that we could look to flog to a museum or something. Okay. I'm sure there'll be more questions as you leave. I'm sure there'll be more questions as you just mull and your head hits the pillow. I'm sure you have a million questions as soon as your head hits the pillow tonight. So you can email us. And that's probably the best way to do it. I mean, you could grab us on a Sunday, but the reality is my brain is so fried on a Sunday, I'm not likely to give you any kind of logical answer whatsoever. So the best thing to do is email just Matt at Hope Church or admin at Hope Church, and we can pass those questions on. I want to pray. And we've shared some exciting ideas. If the Lord builds the house gets built. If the Lord ain't building the house, no point doing it. Okay? And I mean that. We feel like now is the time and this is the project. But we're not God. And if the Lord wants to lead in a different direction, then we want to hear from him. And we don't want to do it if he's not in it. And if the Lord wants to sell the building and buy on an industrial estate and build a massive warehouse, then he can let us know that as well. Okay, why don't we turn into groups and pray, and then I'll send you on your merry way.
Explore ideas,
And so, Heavenly Father, Father, we thank you that your heart for this town has not changed. Father, we thank you that your heart for this place is the same. We thank you that the God who started this movement 30 years ago is still at work now. And Father, I thank you for everything you've done in the last 30 years. And I ask, Father, would you carry on in the next 30 years as well? Lord, would this building be a place where your word goes out to a new generation of people in Wigston, to a hurting and broken generation who need the light of the gospel? Would this place be a place where the nations stream in? And Lord, if you want this building to stay exactly the same, then that's fine. If you want us to do something like what we've talked about today, great. If you want us to do something completely different, we're in. We just want to see your kingdom come. And so, Lord, we trust it to you. We trust the finances to you. You own the cattle on 1,000 hills. You can do a poxy little building program, Lord. We give it to you. We give the vision to you. And Holy Spirit, we ask that you would fill this building, whatever it looks like. That when people come in this place, they know there's something different. Different about the atmosphere here, different about the people here. This is a place they can have a cup of tea and coffee and meet with Jesus. So we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much for coming out, guys. It's nice to do this in person, not on Zoom, isn't it? Please keep giving us your feedback. We want to hear. We want to shape. This isn't just lip service. This is going to shape how we move things forward. So keep them coming, and we'll keep you posted. Bless you guys.